Imagine a land where the earth stretches like a ribbon between towering Andes peaks and the wild Pacific, where deserts bloom with flowers and glaciers gleam under a southern sky. Chile, South America's slender spine, is a symphony of extremes, a place where ancient mummies rest in the driest desert, poets weave dreams into words, and communities thrive in defiance of earthquakes and tsunamis. From the star-dusted Atacama to the windswept fjords of Patagonia, Chile is a story of resilience, beauty, and unyielding spirit. Let's journey through its landscapes, people, history and soul, capturing a nation that dances between fire and ice. Chile's geography is a marvel of contrasts, stretching 4,270 kilometers from the Peruvian border to the tip of Tierra del Fuego, yet averaging just 177 kilometers wide. It's the world's narrowest country relative to its length. Covering 756,096 square kilometers, it's dwarfed by neighbors like Brazil, but punches above its weight in diversity. The Atacama Desert in the north, the driest place on Earth, gets less than 1 millimeter of rain annually, its cracked earth hiding salt flats and geysers. Yet every few years El Niño brings rains that transform it into a carpet of wildflowers, a phenomenon called the Desierto Florido. Central Chile, home to Santiago, nestles in a fertile valley where vineyards produce world-class Carmenere. Further south, the Lake District's emerald forests and volcanoes like Villarrica draw adventurers. Patagonia's rugged beauty, shared with Argentina, features Torres del Paine National Park, where granite spires pierce the sky and guanacos roam. The Pacific coast, with 6,435 kilometers of shoreline, hosts fishing villages and surf hubs like Pichilemu. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, 3,500 kilometers west, guards its Moai statues, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a testament to Polynesian ingenuity. Antarctica's Chilean claim adds another layer with research bases on the frozen continent. This geography shapes Chile's story. Humans arrived 18,500 years ago, leaving tools in Monteverde, among the oldest archaeological sites in the Americas. The Chinchorro people, 7,000 years ago, mummified their dead in the Atacama, predating Egypt's practices. Indigenous groups like the Mapuche, Aymara, and Diaguita thrived before Spanish conquest in 1541, when Pedro de Valdivia founded Santiago. The Mapuche resisted fiercely, holding southern territories until the 1880s. Colonial Chile was a backwater of Spain's empire, but silver and wheat exports grew its importance. Independence in 1818, led by Bernardo O'Higgins and José de San Martin, sparked a nation-building era, though conflicts like the War of the Pacific, from 1879 to 1884 against Peru and Bolivia defined borders, securing the nitrate-rich Atacama. The 20th century brought economic booms, copper replaced nitrates as Chile's lifeblood, and political storms. Salvador Allende's socialist government, which lasted from 1970 to 1973, was the first Marxist regime elected in the Americas. It took bold steps to nationalize industries. However, it all came to an abrupt end in a 1973 coup led by Augusto Pinochet. His 17-year dictatorship left a chilling legacy, with 3,200 dead or disappeared and 38,000 tortured. These scars are, still deeply felt today. Thankfully, democracy made its return in 1990, with leaders like Michelle Bachelet, Chile's first female president, steering the nation toward social progress. In 2021, Gabriel Boric was elected at the young age of 35. He represents a new generation that is really pushing for equality and environmental reform. It's quite an exciting time for the country. Chile, with its 19.6 million people, is a vibrant blend of cultures. According to the 2022 census, 80.6% identify as white or mestizo, while 12.8% are indigenous, mainly Mapuche, Aymara, and Rapa Nui. There are also smaller Black, Asian, and other groups. Spanish is spoken by 99% of the population, and is the official language. However, Mapudungun, Aymara, and Quechua continue to thrive in indigenous communities. It's a diverse tapestry indeed. Santiago, with 7 million people, is the economic and cultural hub, its skyscrapers like Gran Torre Santiago towering over colonial plazas. And then, Valparaíso, a port city of colorful hills and street art, hums with bohemian energy. Family is central, with Sunday asados, those barbecues, uniting generations over grilled beef and pebre, which is a spicy salsa. Soccer unites the nation too, with Colo-Colo and Universidad de Chile igniting fierce rivalries, and 62,000 fans packing Estadio Nacional. Education is prized, with 88% literacy and universities like Pontificia Universidad Católica ranking among Latin America's best, though student protests since 2011 demand free education. Culture is Chile's heartbeat. Poetry is a national treasure. Pablo Neruda, Nobel laureate, wove love and politics into verses, and, his Isla Negra home is kind of a pilgrimage site. Gabriela Mistral, another Nobel winner, captured the soul of rural life. Music in Chile spans from cueca, the national dance with its handkerchief-twirling flirtation, all the way to Nueva Canción, a folk movement from the 1960s deeply tied to social justice. Food really reflects the land here. Empanadas de pino stuffed with beef, onions, and olives are a street food staple, while cazuela, a hearty stew, warms those southern winters. Seafood totally reigns on the coast. Curanto, a Chiloé Island dish, layers shellfish, meat, and potatoes in an earth oven. And, wine, especially from the Maipo and Colchagua valleys, flows freely, with about 4.4 million hectoliters produced every year, and 70% of that is exported. Rodeos, rooted in Huaso or cowboy culture, draw big crowds in rural zones, while urbanites flock to festivals like Vina del Mar's music extravaganza, which is actually Latin America's largest. Economically, Chile is kind of a regional star, but, it does face its own set of challenges. Its gross domestic product, estimated at $317 billion in 2024, makes it South America's fifth largest economy. And with a per capita income of $16,200, that's actually the highest in the region. Copper, which is mined from giants like Escondida, accounts for about half of all exports, earning $40 billion every year. And then there's lithium, which is vital for batteries. Chile is the world's second largest producer, with 36,000 tons extracted in 2023. Agriculture, think grapes, avocados, and salmon, really thrives here, with about 1.2 million tons of fruit exported every year. The peso, or CLP, sits at 900 to the US dollar and is considered pretty stable. And inflation, at 4.2% in 2024, is actually among the lowest in Latin America. Yet, inequality persists. The top 1% hold 26% of the nation's wealth, and 10.8% of people live below $6.85 a day. Pension reform, which is a priority for President Boric, aims to address a privatized system that, right now, leaves many elderly folks struggling. Santiago's tech scene, often called Silicon Valley, has given rise to startups like Notco, which is a plant-based food innovator. However, rural areas still lag behind when it comes to infrastructure. Politically, Chile is a democracy under strain. The 1980 Constitution, which is a relic from the Pinochet era, was actually replaced in 2022 after widespread protests. These protests were sparked by a subway fare hike back in 2019, but they quickly escalated into demands for systemic change. The new constitution, though, was rejected by voters for being, too progressive, which led to a second draft process that's also currently stalled. President Boric's left-leaning coalition now faces a conservative Congress, and that's really slowing down reforms on taxes and healthcare. Mapuche demands for land rights continue to fuel tensions in the south, with arson attacks and military deployments still ongoing. According to Freedom House, Chile scores 94 out of 100 for democracy. They praise the country's free elections, but they also point out issues like judicial backlog and, some gaps in indigenous rights. Ex-posts really reflect this divide. Some celebrate Boric's climate pledges, while others criticize what they call socialist overreach or focus on crime, with over 1,200 homicides in 2023. Tourism is kind of Chile's siren song. The Atacama's Valle de la Luna, with its lunar landscapes, draws about 1.5 million visitors every year, and stargazing in its clear skies, home to ALMA, the world's largest radio telescope, is honestly unmatched. Torres del Paine's W-Trek also lures hikers, bringing in 250,000 annual visitors. Valparaiso's murals and funiculars totally charm artists, while Quilo's wooden churches, which are UNESCO sites, really evoke a sense of mysticism. Easter Island's 1,000 moai draw 80,000 tourists, though, over-tourism does strain resources. Wildlife dazzles, Andean condors soar, and Punta Arenas penguins waddle. Earthquakes like the 8.8 magnitude 2010 quake pose risks, but strict building codes save lives. Altitude sickness in the Andes and rip currents on beaches demand caution, yet locals' warmth, sharing mate or a Pisco sour, eases any journey. Chile's challenges are, honestly, pretty stark. Inequality, despite some real progress, still fuels a lot of discontent, with about 30% of rural Mapuche living in poverty. Climate change is a big threat too. The Atacama faces water scarcity, and Patagonia's glaciers, like Gray, are retreating by about 200 meters every year. And, forest fires, worsened by drought, scorched nearly 400,000 hectares in 2023. Indigenous rights, especially for the Mapuche, are still unresolved, with around 1,000 land conflicts active right now. Yet Chileans are a resilient bunch. Community kitchens in Santiago's poblaciones feed thousands, and renewable energy, making up half the grid in 2024, actually leads Latin America. X is buzzing with Chile's allure, Atacama's starry nights, Patagonia's turquoise lakes, and Neruda's poetry. But yeah, all that is tempered by debates over crime and politics. Chile is a land of fire and ice, deserts and fjords, pain and poetry. From the Atacama's stark beauty to Patagonia's wild heart, it's a nation that really demands you feel its pulse, through its wine, its cueca, its protests, and its dreams. This is Chile, where every vista tells a story, every struggle sparks hope, and every step feels like a dance with eternity.